mind. Good.
Well, thanks for the intro.
Yeah, thank you. No, not. Okay, let's try and get a microphone. Good. Well, is this too loud? Is this good?
Perfect.
Marvellous. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another fun-filled third Monday of every month Austin Blockchain Collective Community Meetup here at Capital Factory. My name is Pete Harris, and I somewhat run the Austin Blockchain Collective with some other good friends. And tonight we've got something that we do just about annually, which is kind of a review of some of the new startups that have started up, that have emerged, and sort of look at what they've been doing a bit. So that's what tonight's about. We are live streaming this and recording the live stream, which means if you say anything, it's probably not just slander, it's probably libel as well. Yeah, so you can actually, from about tomorrow, go home and rerun the proceedings. And we've got a few slide decks as well, and we'll put those up on the Meetup group as well for later reviews. So I'm going to jump into like 5-10 minutes of quick notices, and then we'll see whether anyone else in the room wants to get up and do a quick shout out on something, and then we'll dive straight into the main kind of meat of the evening. So here we go. So I say this every month. If you leave here tonight with nothing else apart from a sense of having had a great time and learned something, please take away these facts. AustinBlockchainCollective.com is our website. You will find things there that are useful, and you will find links to blogs and LinkedIn groups and Twitter feeds and things like that. So, and you'll find a way to contact us as well. So that's a great URL to make sure you've got bookmarked, or whatever you do with these things these days. We do have a Twitter feed, ATX Block Collect. We tweet. When we tweet, we generally add the hashtag #Austin Blockchain. And if anyone else does that, i.e. add the hashtag, assuming the tweet is sensible and relevant, we will retweet it, so for free. So it's worthwhile doing. Yeah, please remember that website. That's kind of the first port of call I say to anyone is, when someone says, what about or are you doing, I say, look at the website. So we've got a mission statement and a kind of statement of approach, and this is pretty new. We've been amending our mission statement sort of bit by bit since we got started. We actually launched, by the way, at South by Southwest 2018, and this kind of newish mission statement sort of brings in the fact that we think we're about business, and we certainly always thought we were about innovation and broad in thought leadership. The basic thrust of this, though, we really want to put blockchain on the global map, and we think it should be on the global map because we reckon there is a massive amount of stuff happening here in blockchain and crypto. There are kind of around 120-ish companies with a presence here. It kind of goes up and down a bit depending on whether companies are merging and failing and going away or moving away, or new companies moving here. So there's some new companies moving here and setting up here right now. So it's a bit transient, but it's around that number, which is a lot. And a couple of things that we do as a collective, we do sort of quite a few things. We do a lot of education, so meetups like this. We speak at events. On Saturday, I was helping promote and helped organise the Texas Blockchain Summit at UT. This Wednesday, I'm contributing to Capital Factory's Innovation Council event, which in the morning is kind of closed door and invite only, but in the afternoon, anyone can come to. And if you don't have that on your list, you should do it. And how do you find out about it? You come to our website. So sort of educational things like that. The big educational thing we've got coming up is next Monday throughout the entire day, which is the blockchain track of Austin Startup Week, where we've got about 4 or 5 different sessions, all free, all open to all. So would love to see some of you there. And again, if you want to find out more about it, you come to our website. This is a recording. So that's an educational thing we do. We've also realised that we spend a lot of time connecting things together, people to other people, and companies to other companies, and and to organisations, and we've kind of been quite successful at making things happen. There's a man at the back who I got a job for. There's a man who's not here tonight who emailed me about a week ago to say thank you because as a result of coming to one of our meetups, he met someone who gave his company an order, and the order's got $30 million on it. I think that's quite a good deal. And he said to me in the email, I owe you a beer. He owes me a bloody brewery is what he owes me. So we've done some things, and we've hooked some people into the city of Austin, so like the IOTA Foundation, who are doing things. They're the first connection. We made that first connection, helping a bit with the city of Austin's MyPass project. So got a healthcare focused working group with Delmed. So we've kind of found that we are quite good at putting people together for the reason of doing things together, collaborating, hopefully being successful. And we think if we help companies here be more successful, that will help us put Austin, Texas on the global blockchain map. So it kind of comes back to that. So that's sort of my advert spiel. We've got a few companies. We do quite a lot of things essentially for free for companies. Provide a number of what I would call DIY services. So using the hashtag is one, putting stuff on our blog, you can do it, using our LinkedIn group, having a listing on our website, that's all free. It does cost money to do those things, and for that sort of funding requirement, we are very pleased to have a number of companies actually provide us real money to help us do some of those things. Always looking for more companies to provide us with a bit of money to do things. This list kind of changes a bit as we've probably got 2 or 3 more companies joining shortly, and as well as kind of providing them with a presence and some exposure, and obviously a sense of giving back to the community. We work with some of these companies on very specific programs for them to help them. 212 being one of those, which is presenting at next month's meetup. They're essentially coming out of stealth. So there's an interesting sort of some things that we do in a very practical way to help the ecosystem. One big thank you I'm going to make is the Capital Factory, where we are now. We've been holding this meetup at Capital Factory for, I don't know, at least probably 2 years now. This meetup actually was called something else before the collective was formed. And they hold a lot of other meetups here, not just blockchain, but on lots of things. In terms of blockchain, they hold the Austin Blockchain Technology meetup here, the Hyperledger Austin one of the outings of the Ethereum meetup, although it's probably more fun to go down to Buzzmill and have a drink with Dhiren, the new Hedera Hashgraph meetup. So they're very much sort of at the centre of giving back to the crypto community. And a little while ago, they said to us, would you like to come in and base yourselves here at Capital Factory, because they realised that we can help them in all of the different programs that they do. And so it's a very good symbiotic relationship. So thank you to Capital Factory. And since I know they're probably listening in, it's probably good to say it a couple of times. However, on to the main meat of... Oh, actually, just a couple more things coming up. Next meet-up, October 21, always the third Monday of every month. All about security tokens, which is what this Company 212 is about. The next meet-up after that is in November the 18th. That's going to be a preview of South by Southwest, because by then we should know what local companies are doing things at South by Southwest in terms of being on their main programs. So we hope to showcase some of those. We will have a lady from South by Southwest coming along, and she curates all of the blockchain sessions there, so everyone can bitch to her about why you didn't get in. And we've kind of helped a bit with South by in putting their programming together, and we'll see whether we can kind of help to fill in some of the gaps with what they're doing as well. As I say, Austin Startup Week, the blockchain track next Monday. All day next Monday in actually the Antone's room across there. Should be a great day. We've got sessions. We've got a general Q&A session with the collective. Got a session on food safety and blockchain led by Accenture. Got a session on healthcare with 3 or 4 local people on it. A session on something else. Got a session on identity, which will be interesting because we've got 2 or 3 companies, local companies involved with that, including one that's heavily involved with nanotechnology. And they're doing some very interesting things, so we'll find out what they're doing. So yeah, that should be a good day, again, free and open to all. Okay, what's next? Oh, shout-outs. So shout-outs are really, this is your turn. If you are doing something that you want other people to know about, if you need help, if you're looking for work, if you are looking to hire people, if you saw something in the press or something and want to talk about it and mention it, anything like that, just don't try not to sort of raise money here unless I'm a part of it. Who's got something to say? Lewis, you? Yeah? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
My name is Luis. I'm from Governance Chain, and we are looking for a Hyperledger Fabric developer. And please, if any interested, just go to governancechain.com and reach me out from a message.
Who else has got something to say? You're speaking later. You can't say something. Oh, okay. All right. Oh, yeah. Okay. All right.
I know what this is about.
Ah, yeah.
Okay, so the City of Austin's Innovation Department, which is responsible for the MyPass initiative, which is a digital identity solution to help people experiencing homelessness secure their identity and access the services that they need, is on the hunt for 3 different people, 3 different roles. But the main one that they're trying to hire for right now is a full stack developer, looking for someone to help with fast prototyping, delivering product visualization, having some depth and knowledge around RESTful APIs, SAML, data structures around NoSQL, MongoDB, Aurora, QDB, QLDB, things like that. So we just published the community news this morning, so the job description and the reference to it on Indeed is listed in the community update. But if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. I'm Joshua, or you can find it on the Medium blockchain website.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And in fact, last week on the community update, we post quite a bit of stuff. Well, the last couple of weeks, we posted something about MyPass and everything going on there, and lots of background information. So check that out. And if you
Forward
Yeah.
They're developing with a look forward for more grant money and more funding from the city. So
It's not just an MVP they're doing, it's kind of beyond that.
yes, it is.
Good stuff. Okay. Any more for any more, or are we going to jump into the night? I think we're going to do it. So at the end of tonight, we've got 5 presenters. They're each going to take no more than 10 minutes. If they do less than 10 minutes, they can sort of take questions until they get to 10 minutes, and then they get off. And then at the end of all 5, they'll come back up here and answer what other questions you have. And then after all that's happening, we'll go downstairs and have a drink. So that's the plan for tonight. Let me pull up the first slide deck. I believe the order of running tonight is actually by alphabetical order by surname of the presenter. So here's who's presenting: Niran from Panvala, Yolanda from Curative Finance, Richard and Keith from Lily Pond. First time you've spoken about it, I think, maybe? Yeah, he's looking at me, yeah. Joshua from Digital Assets, since he only joined them about 10 hours ago. That's probably the first time he's presenting on that. And then Noah here from Toddle, who's usually hanging around the 5th floor, I think. So let's, I'll pull up the first slide deck, let Niran come up and begin his presentation. So, okay, okay, that's you, isn't it? Why isn't it working? Open. That was window view. View. Sorry, I'm pretty crap at things like this. It's all right. End the full screen. Good. There you go. Over to you. If the microphone suddenly dies, there's another one out there to jump. Yes. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming. I'm glad I get to go first. My last name's been doing me well since elementary school.
Can I make a suggestion to move the podium forward about 3 feet? Because you're getting a booming feedback.
Yeah, it might be. You can make a suggestion, but you can help me do it too.
If we get, the one thing I'll warn you on, let's keep it away from this microphone right here, or it will cause feedback trouble, so you can move it forward. This is one thing they taught me. Other than that, I don't know what's going on. So.
About right.
Okay.
All right, let's try this. Feedback.
And it might
There's,
be two.
there's a little bit, but I think it's going to be okay.
Is that mic 1 or mic 2 on it?
Mic 1.
Is the other mic on underneath the thing? Because sometimes if they're really close together and they're on, it'll show a green light.
It looks
I don't
off.
think it's on.
Okay.
Good. Try it now, because I can tweak it here.
Well, let's see if this works. Oh, that sounds a little bit better. All right, we'll give it a shot and see what happens. My name is Niran Babalola. I work at a company called Consensus. If you haven't heard of it, we do a lot of stuff on the Ethereum blockchain. Quick show of hands, like for all the people interested in blockchain related stuff, which people have their focus on Ethereum? All right, so about like a third. Cool. All right, welcome everybody else. We're all friends here. There's no competition. But I'm working on a product called Panvala. So what Panvala is it's basically a decentralized version of the Ethereum Foundation. So in the Ethereum community, the Ethereum Foundation got started by basically getting some of the initial ether that was allocated on chain, as well as some of the Bitcoin proceeds of the ether crowd sale. So the initial network got funded by people who were like, hey, I'm gonna get some of this ether when this network launches, and they kept some ether. And that money is really what's been funding a lot, not all of it, but a lot of the work that the whole network depends on gets funded by that foundation. But that foundation has a limited supply of funds. Like, it doesn't take in money, it only spends down money. And even though like it's been pretty fortunate that the price of that money has gone up over time, it's not infinite. But a lot of the challenges that the network faces and that the community faces are gonna continue to go on over time. So having this entity that's spending down funds is eventually gonna run out is not ideal. It would be nice to have something sustainable. And that's what we're trying to do with Panvala, make Ethereum sustainable. We want there to be a sustainable flow of funds for the work that the whole network depends on. Some of you may have noticed that the longer things go in a network, when it's not the new hot thing anymore, people kind of want to get in early on something new. They want to get their hands on some token for a new blockchain, either one that they created themselves or one that they bought into. So they want to be a part of that instead. And that kind of makes communities start to splinter. Because even though in a technological industry, you want new things to come out, when each new thing has its own new token, you don't get unified communities working together anymore. You get splintered, isolated communities. And what I think would be ideal is having cooperation on new technologies instead of splintering competition. So that's what Panvala is designed to do, fund that kind of work. So the way that it works is that it's a foundation that runs on its own currency. So a normal foundation takes in US dollars, maybe it takes in Bitcoin or Ether. It spends it on work that aligns with the mission. But Panvala doesn't do that. When you show up with Ether, the first thing you do is you swap that Ether for Pan, which is the token that Panvala itself runs on. What you do with that Pan is you donate it back into Panvala itself. It gets locked up into Panvala's token supply, which is where the grants themselves are funded from. So when people come to Panvala with work that benefits the whole Ethereum community, what they get is a grant in Panvala's own token. So we issue grants in our own token and we take in donations in our own token. Those grant recipients can sell those tokens to donors, like when you're coming in with your money to donate, you're giving it to somebody, that person that you're giving it to is a grant recipient. So those grant recipients can sell it to donors or they can hold on to it because those tokens are used to vote in the system and allocate where new grants go. So if you have the people doing the most important work in the ecosystem allocating the grants, we think we're going to get better outcomes than a lot of other systems. So that's the gist of how it works. The more demand there is for donations, the more work that we can fund together. Again, it's all money from donors going to the pockets of grant recipients with this token in between. And the reason to have the token in between is because a normal foundation might have 2 or 3 people on staff who are rewarded to bring more donations in the door. So they get their paycheck, and they get their paycheck because they're doing something that the organization needs. They're making the money come in. Panvala, on the other hand, instead of having 2 or 3 people, it can have thousands or millions of people who have an incentive to bring more donations in the door. Because again, the more donations flowing through the system, the more demand there is for the Pan token. So if together the people who are holding this Pan token go out, tap their social network, say, hey, you should really donate to this thing, it's funding the work that we care about, not only is the stuff that you care about getting funded, the demand for the token that you hold increases. So we want people to be able to not just do good, but also do well at the same time. We use a novel governance system to run this thing. A lot of if you've heard of DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, it's not my favorite term, but it's very hot right now. And the way that they're typically governed is people are putting together proposals and you're voting on each proposal. We think that doesn't work really well, it breaks down over time, and people don't pay enough attention to be able to vote all the time. So instead, the way that Panvala works is grant proposals are put together by advisory groups. So they collect these applications, and an advisory group is saying, hey, here's what we should do this quarter. This is our quarterly budget that we recommend to Panvala. And to make that actually active in the system, they have to stake tokens on their recommendation. So they're basically putting their money where their mouth is. They're saying, hey, this is the consensus of the Panvala community. These are the grants. And if we're wrong, then we'll lose our tokens. So if somebody else shows up and says, that's not actually the consensus of the community, they put together their own recommendation of what should be done this quarter. They stake their tokens on it, and now these two are competing. That's what triggers a vote. If there was only one slate of recommendations, there would be no vote at all. It would just go through at the end of the quarter, those grants would be released because everybody saw the consensus of the community, nobody disputed it, so that's it, no vote at all. But when there's actually a dispute, when things are unclear, that's when you have a vote. The votes are what resolve that, and at the end of the quarter, one slate wins, those are the ones that are executed. So how am I doing on time?
4 minutes.
Okay, cool. So I wanted to highlight this quote. This is from Simon de la Riviere, who's been really active in the token ecosystem in Ethereum. He was like the employee number 3 at Consensus. I was like number 30, so before me. But what he said was, I'm donating to Panvala because new socially driven organizations could be the key to avoiding a tragedy of the commons for maintaining public networks like Ethereum. And the reason that viewpoint is so important to me is because what made me actually start working with programmable blockchains in the first place was it really clicked for me, this idea that you could write the rules for any interaction between individuals or among groups of people, kind of like a set of board game rules. And you could publish those rules on a blockchain, and that blockchain would enforce those rules forever, impartially. So as long as those rules, and as long as playing that game is producing more value for the participants than they're putting in, they can keep playing that game forever without relying on anyone, because there's this impartial system that's always going to enforce those rules for them. And to me, it really seemed like there are so many games we could play that are better than the games that we're playing right now as a society. Like when people get frustrated with their communities or with society as a whole, sometimes people think that the problem is with us, like it's a flaw in human nature, that's just the way we are. But for a lot of the problems that we're dealing with, I think the problem is not in us, the problem is in the games that we play. And if we can write better games that help people cooperate in ways that they prefer, I think a lot of the problems that we just take for granted, we're just like, we're always gonna be living with those, I think we're gonna start to get past them. So Panvala is one of those better games. I think if we have an incentive to cooperate, an incentive to find all the people who share the same sort of vision that we do and get them to work together, I think that game is gonna be really fun to play. That's Panvala. If you want to pledge to donate today, or actually donate today if you have Ether on your phone, but a pledge is fine. You'll get one of these Panvala water bottles. They're very nice. But find me and I'll help you pledge. We launched on mainnet about 3 weeks ago at DAppCon in Berlin, and we started accepting donations on chain literally today. So these Pan tokens are now moving around, and it's really cool. You can look at it on Etherscan, and it's kind of neat to watch. But it's live, it's cool. Love to take any questions for the
1 minute for questions.
1 minute. Yes.
I have a quick question. So you said you have to give Ether and you receive PAN tokens. Where does the value of the PAN tokens derive? I'm a little bit confused by that. So if I was looking for a grant, would you be, and if somebody was to donate Ether, would you pass me Panvala tokens or would you pass me Ethereum tokens?
So Panvala only controls Pan tokens. It doesn't control anything else. So when you come to make a donation and you're trying to figure out how many Pan you need to make a donation, the source of truth right now is Uniswap. And if you haven't heard of Uniswap, it's basically a pool of Ether and a pool of some other token. And based on the balance of Ether and that token in that contract, Uniswap will always trade at a price derived from those two pools. So there's all these different, it's basically a decentralized exchange that's always trading. There's no, so the Uniswap is kind of what we use as the source of truth for what the current, like if you're trying to donate and you're saying, I want to donate $15, we say, hey, Uniswap, what's $15 a Pan? And then we say, okay, that's what you need. You buy the Pan, you donate the Pan, and you're credited for a $15 donation.
So what happens to the Ethereum?
It goes to somebody else. So in the idealized scenario, your Ether goes directly to a grant recipient, right? And you get their Pan. But the reason that we're using Pan in the first place is because it can be liquid. So instead of having to find a grant recipient directly, you go to a marketplace where a grant recipient sold or put their tokens up for sale already. You buy those tokens. So there might be people in between, but every token starts in the hands of grant recipients and ends in the hands of donors.
So if you wanted to convert your PANs back into Ethereum at some point, can you do that, or it's only a one-way transaction?
It's a token that circulates, so you can do whatever the market is willing to do for them, you can do.
You're going to have to hold it to the end because we have to get the next speaker up here.
I will definitely
But
answer
they'll
those.
be around.
It's about nonprofit accounting.
Oh, that sounds messy.
I'll chat with you after. Thanks.
Okay. Sorry, I have to be so firm with time, but otherwise people won't get to speak. When we held this showcase last year, we actually physically pulled someone from the stage. So that's not going to be you.
You can do that for me.
That's okay.
Carried away with this stuff.
It was an Australian, so it doesn't matter. Good. Over to you.
All right. Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name's Yolanda Baker, and I'm going to be talking today about curative finance, a unique healthcare savings solution for unique people. So, my name's Yolanda Baker. I'm an author. I'm an accountant. I'm also a special needs mom. And I'm also a consultant, and I'm a creator of the book that's being passed around right now, the Smart Guide series of guidebooks. So, before we start, I would like to tell you a story. 4 months after moving to Austin, my toddler son was diagnosed with autism. And it was a pretty tough time, but my husband and I went straight to work on that. And so we did all different types of therapies, assessments, special diet. Eventually, he was able to enroll in a special needs day school. And so very shortly after that, our insurer, our health insurer, started denying all services, even things like speech therapy and occupational therapy. So of course, my husband and I fought the insurance company, and that went on for several months, although there were some services that were denied for a couple of years, but we kept fighting. Oops. So in the meantime, the bills, the expenses had to be paid because I wasn't going to stop getting my son the therapy that he needed. And eventually my budget was busted, so I started using credit cards. And when that stopped, I took out a loan. And in the process, my son got the therapy he needed. And eventually the insurer did pay for most of the services. But I did ruin my credit score, and I was on the brink of bankruptcy. But I'd rather have that than to always think about, well, what if? You know, even if I have the money, what if I did a little bit more? So my story, unfortunately, is not unique. After talking with several or many special needs families in the special needs community, I realized that most working Americans are just an accident or diagnosis away from bankruptcy. As a matter of fact, medical debt is the #1 reason for bankruptcy in the United States, and that study came out in 2007, and I doubt that it's changed. And special needs families are at high risk of medical indebtedness. So what do some Americans do to reduce medical debt? There was a recent study of Americans ages 25 to 45, and I'll give you a couple of stats on that study. 33% delay seeking medical help. 27% avoid care to avoid the high deductibles. 22% take less than the recommended dosage to extend their prescription. And I think the worst one is 21% stop taking their prescriptions altogether because it costs too much. So from those experiences and talking with special needs families and other research, I published a book on reducing medical expenses. And what I did is I used the following items currently used by most working Americans, and I call it the bite your bills method. B for budgeting, I for insurance, specifically health insurance, T for taxes, and E for employer health plans such as HSAs and other medical savings accounts. The system I created gave me about $30,000 back in medical expenses back to my family. That's actually just a snippet of what we actually paid out of pocket. And so I published the system into the book. I created webinars and seminars. But after years of helping families, I felt something was missing. So I thought, and this was earlier this year, what if I created a combination health benefits plan, a secure medical document depository, and an investment opportunity under a stable cryptocurrency environment? So I morphed my consultancy into Curative Finance, which is a blockchain-based healthcare savings plan. And so I still use the Bite Your Bill system that I used in the past, but this time I've tweaked it. I put more of an emphasis on medical savings accounts. And what I thought about is, why don't we use a stablecoin-based medical savings account? That's just a generic term, MSA. And also create a secure healthcare document storage and retrieval system backed by a blockchain. And so this is how it would work in regards to the medical savings account. You would deposit funds into your MSA, and the dollars convert into a stablecoin cryptocurrency. And when you want to take out the funds for a medical expense, it converts back to the US dollar and the expense is paid. Now, why would you use cryptocurrency in a medical savings account? And there's two major reasons. The first one is cryptocurrencies are digital, and I discovered that they cannot be forged or reversed via credit card chargebacks, and that's a big deal for a lot of merchants out there. The second reason is that it sends the exact amount of the sale to the merchant, not the customer's full credit line as credit cards do, which is something I did not know. So, also the stablecoin allows for a modest increase in value adjusted for inflation. So the revenue generators for Curative Finance will be, you can use them both on smart devices and PCs. And I am going to create newsletter subscriptions, both free and fee-based, as well as app products and regular physical products that you can use, such as stationery and planners. I'm also considering collaborating with the following organizations: Patient Advocate Foundation, CareStarter, WebAIM, and also Aunt Bertha, who's just, they're doing phenomenal work in the social services industry. So the future of Curative Finance, besides creating a nationwide healthcare savings plan or system, is that I'm interested in building a cryptocurrency credit union for special needs families and those who are disabled. I would like to hire at least 50% of my workforce who have special needs. Specifically, I am looking for high-functioning people with autism for programmers. And I'm also looking into advocacy in the state and federal government level to create financial incentives for the special needs communities. And if y'all have any questions or comments, I'll take them now. And you can also email me. Thank you. Couple minutes?
Yeah, you did great.
Wow. Does anyone have any questions?
What's the stage of the project?
Okay. The stage of the project, well, for the past 10 years I've been doing this. I've been solo practice, and it was going very well. And the book is in the 5th edition, but this portion is pre-seed. I just finished, gosh, I can't think of the cohort. I'm sorry?
White paper.
I haven't done the white paper yet, but it is pre-seed, and I am very interested in bringing this to the next level.
New chip.
New chip, thank you, Richard. I just finished the cohort with New Chip, and it's absolutely amazing.
Your document storage system, have you put much work into that yet?
Well, I actually read your white paper, and I'm very interested in what you all have to say about that.
All right.
Are you going with an existing stablecoin or making your own?
I was thinking about making my own, because I really would like it to be specifically for medical savings accounts and for nothing else. Thank you.
Thank you, Leila. Great. Well, you're hanging around for questions at the end, aren't you?
Oh, yeah.
Good. Great. So we've got the next presentation is in some way related to Yolanda's. Let's pull this one up. Okay, good. Yeah, that's you. That works, I think. Richard, over to you. You've got 10 minutes. No more.
10 minutes, okay.
Don't mention Brexit.
Right. Okay, so we're still talking about autism. We're still talking about special needs. And the world of special needs is really a challenge that the tech world would rather pretend doesn't really exist, because in fairness, a lot of you are going for low-hanging fruit. And what I'm going to describe is something that you'd rather pretend wasn't really there. So imagine, as you know, Yolanda already took you through the process of the very, very early days of a child with autism. But it can take many, many families many years before they get the diagnosis. And those early years are very, very critical, because it is proven that if you can get early intervention, then the outcomes for your child are substantially improved. So you've got an insurance industry that doesn't really want a diagnosis. It doesn't want to hear it. And we need a way of validating, self-authenticating the experience of our community, and then holding government systems, education systems, insurance companies to their obligations to our community. And blockchain has a fantastic opportunity of being a very, very powerful force for social change. Until you have walked the walk with a special needs family, you really have absolutely no idea of the administrative burden that the families are subjected to. It is just unbelievable. And to find education systems systematically forcing your children out of the public education system because they just don't want problems. And you find hospitals really preferring not to want to deal with your kids, and insurance companies doing their damnedest to pretend that your community doesn't even exist. Okay? So, world of blockchain, if you're wearing your super suit, we can't see you because you're not stepping up to fix this. But this one solution is a system presented by Yolanda, because what she's trying to work out a way is how do you fund the solving of these problems? Okay, that's Yolanda's end. What we're looking at is the scenario where an adult with autism who has had services denied all their lives, they end up at a certain point in their lives where they're in a home, they're in a state-supported living center, nobody knows their name, and because they have autism, they can't tell anybody who they are. So where are the records? Do you have any idea how many people are out there on the streets because they can't tell anybody who they are? Whether they are opioid addicts, or people with autism, or people with schizophrenia. You know, their records are long lost, completely lost. So how do we track all of that? And how do we validate all of this? How do we make a system work in spite of the system? Okay? So this is what Lily Pond is. We started working with Governance Chain, and Luis is right there in the corner. Luis, can you stand up? Right? So Luis helped us put together an idea as to how the documentation end of this challenge would work. But blockchain on its own won't fix this problem, because you need a system that secures the online life of a child. You need an absolutely secure online system, and you can only do that by anchoring in the microchips. Now, to explain what that means, Keith is right here, and he's going to talk to us about the tech end.
When Richard came to us, we thought he was crazy, pure and simple, because he was facing a problem that most people just kind of dismiss. We're living in an online world. Your documents are out there somewhere in the cloud, wherever that is. But the problem with the child is that they live on an electronic world, and everything that they do passes through their electronic equipment, and you really have no trail. You have no way to authenticate what that child's experience is through time, to the point where they reach the age of adulthood, and the courts demand documents. Well, naturally, the parents can't find all those documents because they're scattered everywhere. And so you end up with the child kind of falling through the cracks. The parent goes through the kind of burdens that they have to do to find all these documents. So what we've conceived of is a document protection system that is anchored in blockchain, but that blockchain is anchored within the microchip, not in the software. We thought, and everybody that heard Richard's proposal was saying that, yeah, you could do it with software, but you'd be crazy to do it because the software is just simply not safe enough, and it's true. Software is terrible. We don't believe in software security, although it's absolutely necessary right now. What you want is an Overwatch system that's based in the device that the child is using. And that system should protect the monitored online life, collate the behavior and development using intelligent analytics, and defend the child's guardianship with identity and authenticity. In the world, there are 120 million individuals who have autism. 0 of those individuals have a protected reputation because all electronic devices are at risk. Doesn't matter what you think of blockchain as a security system. I'll tell you right now, blockchain is not a security system. It is secure in that its chain is secure and its self-referencing is secure, but it's floating out there like every other electronic file. The market size is there are 19 million children worldwide with autism. 93 million children have special needs. Out of all that, out of the 1.9 billion children in the world, none of them have a protected reputation online. That's why most parents won't let them even touch the internet until they're about 12 or 13. And even then, you're letting a kid wander out in the wild with all kinds of risk. Oops, that'll go back. This is a diagram of the system. Central to the system is the LilyPond device. It's a hardware device that is a sniffer. It watches the communications of the child to monitor its permission surveillance. It's the best we can put it. The clinical people and the parent make a deal between themselves that, okay, we're giving you permission to watch the child and watch their communications. And the device sniffs out the Ethernet communications and records a forensic path that can connect to the various documents that are generated. I'm not going to go into too much technical stuff. That's just the general diagram there. The business model draws from both social services and social media. Social services in terms of the things that the government provides and industry provides. And then you've got social media that owns all your data. Wouldn't it be nice for you to own your data, especially if you have a high-functioning child with autism that becomes an expert in some field that can then make money off of the information that they have in their system, rather than having to refer everybody to Facebook or Instagram or simply go to some other site to dig up their data. The market adoption, Richard would be better talking about this stuff. I'm mostly in the technical end, but you're dealing with events that that have to do with children with handicaps, children with special needs, and then you have the industries that feed off of the kind of things that Yolanda is talking about: the credit card companies, the medical, insurance, banking, the services, even the military has a great need for a way to track an individual's record online. What I'm hinting at is this case, and it's the reason we got involved, that this use case for children with autism is very important, but it's extensible to many other aspects. Even we were talking to the military recently and simply said that a drone is a machine. Yes, it's a machine, but it's just like a person who has unpredictable and ungovernable behavior. You want to know what is going on with that life. Your market environment is caught between two big rocks. Data governance, which is the government's need for data, the IRS, Medicare, Medicaid, education, immigration, and the military, and then the data cartels that own all this data. Facebook, Google, Amazon, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Epic, Equifax. And so there are a number of competitors in the identity world, but there's nobody there to protect your actual reputation, to actually provide a forensic path for your digital life. The competitive advantages for Lily Pond are pretty obvious. Individual ownership of data is a big deal today. The only way you're going to achieve it is to have a device that has blockchain anchored within it that then becomes a central beacon for your life, anonymized, untouchable, because it's anchored in I don't know how to put it without going into a lot of technical mumbo jumbo, but in the microcircuit, we're able to install layers of parasitic automation, which are segregated from the host, untouchable by software or even physical probing, and yet monitor what that host is doing and even can manipulate the host. That's why we agreed to the Lily Pond project, because we can provide that differentiating factor that does not make this such a crazy software idea. We are looking to cooperate, collaborate, to build a consortium. We have a number of people, the high-level people who are watching us and waiting for us to pull the right groups together. We don't believe in inventing things or building things. We believe in plug and play. So if you have a system, if you have an idea, and you feel that you could link up in an automated way to a blockchain that would connect to other blockchains of other people and other children, and then connect to organizations, then if you can see that sort of automated path, then you'll understand why Lily Pond is such an unusual idea, but it's actually the essence of what blockchain is all about. Because without going to a tangible piece of hardware, your data doesn't exist. It can be spoofed, it can be imitated, it can be replaced, and it can be tampered with. What have we got for time here?
None left, but you could.
None left.
One more slide.
Oh, I got one more slide? Well, the one more slide is just that. Yeah. All right.
Which blockchain are you integrating with?
Excuse me?
Which blockchain are you integrating with to start with?
Actually, it's a DHS blockchain. The Department of Homeland Security has developed a blockchain method that we're integrating with.
Great, thank you. So both Richard and Keith will be around, and they can, I'm sure, talk much more at the end of the next couple of presentations. So Let's pull up the next one. Here we go. Joshua, are you here? Joshua, you're at the back. Good. You. Good. I'm good. Good. Here you go.
Thank you.
So, about 10 seconds of intro. Joshua, until 10 hours ago, did not work for this company. So this is your is it your first presentation? For
I
it?
would say that is my first presentation on the company and the solutions, yes.
Right, so really difficult questions, please.
Thanks. Thanks, Pete. Thanks for inviting me at the last minute. Not really. He knew about this on Friday, so he helped to get us connected. So I do want to talk a little bit about DAML for enterprises. Just a quick introduction. So Joshua Conkle, and work with Pete here with the Austin Blockchain Collective. As of today, I work with Digital Asset Holdings, which is a New York-based company, and I'm responsible for their strategic partnership and alliances with VMware, who is in the process of releasing their VMware Enterprise blockchain solution, currently in beta and due for production release going into Q1 of next year. The lighthouse customer for us in this regard is the Australian Securities Exchange, which handles about $2 trillion in assets and does about $5 to $10 billion a day in terms of total movement of those assets. Just by a show of hands, how many of you here are developers or aspiring developers? Good portion of you. What about the rest of you? How about a show of hands for people that might be more on the business side or maybe marketing side or interest side? Okay, great. Yeah, definitely a good show of hands. So I do have a call to action for both groups, both the development side and on the business side, on the enterprise side. So I do want to talk a little bit about what we're up to and overall what the plan is with DAML, which is an acronym. It's pronounceable, so it is an acronym, but it's Digital Asset Modeling Language. We don't typically talk a lot about the acronym itself. The primary value proposition with DAML in the scope that they currently have it released is it works with multiple blockchains. So if you are developing an enterprise solution and you're hem-hawing around, do I want to learn this smart contract language or this chain code language? If you put some time into learning DAML, then the application that you develop will be supported on Hyperledger Fabric, Hyperledger Sawtooth. It also would work on Amazon Aurora or the latest QLDB. It would be functionally capable of working with VMware's blockchain. So the vision behind DAML and what's currently being executed is if you're a developer, you can learn this one language and your application becomes portable across these different enterprise blockchain solutions that are available. If you're on the business side or the marketing side and you're asking the questions, how many different development groups do I have to spin up? Oh, we want to do this on Hyperledger Fabric, so I have to have somebody that understands this chain code. But we need to do this on Sawtooth, so I need to have this group that understands that. I've already got a part of my organization that does DevOps on Aurora, so I'm going to keep them in play. If they were all learning DAML, one group was learning the DAML application development language, they would all have the skills to be able to build applications across all three of those without having to bring on new people or do new retooling understanding from that standpoint. This is an example, some code samples. So Pete, did you say you were going to distribute these? So I provided this as an example. It's 8 o'clock. I'm not going to spend time looking at the code, but I will call out the big number on this page, which is 800 lines of code describing the interest swap rate for this particular example, developing the same thing in a DAML environment. Oops. There we go. Developing the same thing in a DAML environment it requires 102 lines of code. So in this scenario, if you're a developer or you're an operations person, you're looking at about 8x less overall development that you have to do, and you've got a single language that you're learning to be able to have flexibility or portability across the different enterprise blockchains that are available. I wanted to, as I mentioned before, have a specific call to action for both the business and operations side and the marketing side, as well as the developers. So in the slide, there are a couple of links. One, if you're on the business side or the marketing side, take a look at the marketplace. There are a number of apps that have already been developed by Accenture, PwC, Deloitte, et cetera. So there's a number of companies that are out there where you can see some of the apps that are currently available. If you're a developer, feel free to download the DAML SDK and play around with that. There are some sample apps that you can take a look at. You may want to, now that I've mentioned it, go to the VMware website and sign up for the beta for their blockchain and see whether or not that's something you get access to. But DAML today does work with Aurora, Hyperledger Sawtooth, Fabric, and then also QLDB, which is an announcement that we recently made on the technology. And that's all I have. Short and sweet. Any questions?
Well, a couple minutes for questions, yeah.
The young man in the back, Karthik.
What's the business model for DAML? Is it open source or?
Actually, thank you for asking that. I should have mentioned that. So DAML is an open source technology. And then in terms of how digital asset drives revenue, it's a combination of both services and additional technology that's developed at the enablement layer. So in terms of how the chain code gets created from one blockchain ledger or database to another. So it is open source. So if you wanted to develop your own integration, you could do that and you'd have independent licensing long term. Question in the front?
What are the other benefits of DAML beyond portability across blockchains? Because privacy, security, there's a lot of other features that can talk about.
That's definitely a great question. Yeah, so this came up quite a bit today in my introduction that I had over the last 10 hours. So I was literally drinking from the fire hose since about 9 o'clock this morning. So at the DAML layer, do you know much about DAML? Did you know the answer? Little bit? Okay, so I wondered if you kind of set that up for me. So at the DAML layer, if the underlying database doesn't offer the privacy capabilities at the transaction level or at the sub-transaction level, DAML does have the ability to create some level of privacy capability. But in the event that the data source itself is directly accessed through its security descriptors or discretionary access control list, then the data would generally be available to whoever can access the underlying data. But at the DAML layer, it does have the ability to implement some of those capabilities that a DLT or a distributed ledger or a blockchain would normally do in the event that the data layer is not blockchain. So that the case for that would be like the Aurora database. So you can use a standard Amazon Aurora database, and with the DAML layer, you can get some of those additional capabilities you'd get in a DLT environment without having to have the blockchain database or DLT. So there is a privacy component. One thing I did learn today, though, is that to the best of my knowledge, there's only one blockchain solution out there today that does do sub-transaction privacy. So in the event you had 3 parties involved in a transaction, the only way to protect it from the centralized database that's controlling the transaction is if you had sub-transaction privacy within the transaction itself. And that's apparently it's a product called Canton, which I learned about today. And that also is supported by DAML. So it's canton.io if you're interested in taking a look at that. It was and currently is a research project that's going on inside of Digital Asset, and the team that's primarily responsible for it is out of Zurich. Digital Asset uses that as a reference architecture to provide to the other blockchain companies it's working with, such as Corda. So if you know the market, you might have heard that R3, Corda, and Digital Asset were competitors at one point, but as of about 2 to 3 months ago, they're no longer competing, so they're now partners. Question, sir?
So in terms of interoperability, are there any plans for Solidity support?
That's a good question. I don't think I have enough knowledge about the product set at this point from an enablement standpoint to talk to how Solidity would be directly supported at the DAML layer. I think maybe the question I might want to get asked and answered, and I can do a follow-up on this, would be something like DAML on an Ethereum blockchain environment. How would it support the conversion and the chain the chain code development at that point? So great question. I don't know the answer, but I'm happy to follow up with everybody.
At a high level, is DAML infrastructure code to create blockchains, or is it an application layer SDK and API for creating applications on top of blockchains?
What was the question again?
Is it an SDK for creating applications?
It
Or
is.
is it infrastructure code for creating blockchains?
That's a great question. So the question is it an API or an SDK layer for creating applications, or is it an SDK and API layer for creating blockchains? And the answer is it's for creating applications, and then the underlying data structure could be a well-known blockchain, or it could be a well-known database, depending on how you want the data managed at the data layer. And then DAML, based on its integration with that data structure, could expose blockchain-like capabilities to the app layer without having to have the entire data structure be a traditional DLT, non-permissioned, public, multi-node type of blockchain environment. So if you think about enterprises, in many cases, because they're behind private networks and they might be shared between a number of partners, they don't have to have the full capabilities of a blockchain and the data structure, but they do need some of that flexibility at the app layer. And so that's something where DAML would come in, and then you wouldn't have the overhead of the blockchain data. Am I out of time, Pete?
In about 30 seconds.
30 seconds. One more question.
Any killer apps for DAML that have come out so far?
Killer's the eye of the beholder on that. I would reference the Australian Securities Exchange and what we're doing with them in terms of their settlement on a day-to-day basis, and that also refer you to the marketplace. But there's some pretty cool things out in the marketplace, some different.
A couple of healthcare applications that Hashed Health out of Nashville have done with it. So.
Yep, thank you.
Create other chain structures from scratch.
I don't know if I understand the question, and I'm probably going to be out of time to dig into it a little bit, but let's catch up after the event. Yeah, thanks for posing it. What's that? So I know, I totally agree. I probably had to punt on that anyway, so, all right.
Great,
Thank you, Pete. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for your time tonight.
Thank you. That was pretty good, I think, for 10 hours of training. So. Okay, so thank you, everyone, for keeping to time. And we have one more presentation, and then we'll have some more sort of joint Q&A. It's also great that we've got a nice sort of diverse number of projects to talk about. Okay, let's get this going into full screen. That's wrong. That should be there. View full screen. Don't know what I'm doing. Excellent. No, after you.
How's it going, guys? My name is Noah. I work for a company called Total. We are a decentralized exchange aggregator that basically allows simple swaps of tokens on the Ethereum blockchain. Just a quick overview of the team, the core team. Myself, I'm one of the engineers. There's 3 main engineers, and then product manager, and then David, the CEO. So overall, we work in the DeFi space, decentralized finance. Many companies in this space that are all trying to solve different problems. And we try to encompass most of them, or all of them, so that it's easy to work and interact with multiple through the interoperability of them. They all utilize the non-custodial rules, so that no users are ever giving up access to their funds. Everybody's in control of their funds at all times, and it's globally accessible. One of the main problems with the DeFi space as of now is that it's very fragmented. Any tokens that you're trying to buy or swap, the prices are widely different on different exchanges, different markets, and through these protocols, some of them implement very complex and different protocol layer interactions. Now our goal as Total is, again, to take all of that and simplify it, so you can just call us an API saying you want to buy this token for that token, and our backend will find the best prices, tell you which orders to go to, and it'll all be done in a single call. Now we launched our first platform last year, which was B2C. So we created a platform that customers can come in and just swap on their own. We've since transitioned into more of a B2B, allowing other wallets and different companies and services that want to be able to do this, the same thing and offer it to their customers. So again, they can come to us and say what they want to do, and all the hard back-end complex algorithms to find the best prices and to order split between multiple will be handled through that and submitted directly to the user. Will submit that transaction on the Ethereum blockchain. So again, we don't facilitate any of the transactions. We just tell the users what to do, and they execute it through the best price. I mean, that's basically what we do. On top of that, we allow our partners that want to integrate with our API a way to take a fee on top of that. So if a partner wants to utilize our services, they can take a small transaction fee based on the amount that the users are swapping. Finding out more from us is total.com, and anything else, you guys can come talk to me, and I'd be happy to answer any more questions.
Do you offer any merchant solutions, or is it just for swapping only?
It's mainly just for swapping.
Okay.
No? Okay. Sorry.
So did you say it just shows the users which DEX to go to, or it'll actually swap on the DEX for them?
So our API, when you submit a request to our API will give a very in detailed description of what exchanges that you're going to go to, and then from there they'll compile a transaction object that the user will then sign and submit on chain. So it all happens seamlessly, but we did give a very depth description of what exchanges and how much per exchange is being transacted.
Is there much chance of a race between first finding the price on one exchange and then making the actual transaction after comparing everything?
Yes, so there is that as well. We have a system in place so that when we find the best prices, we also find the second, third, and fourth best prices, so that if for any reason, if someone else is trying to execute the same price, we are able to have backup orders that will generate the limit of what the user wants to get in the result, and will then go to a different exchange.
Does that still necessitate having accounts with all those different exchanges?
No, so we only interact with truly decentralized exchanges, such as Uniswap, Kyber, Bancor, 0x Relayers, whereas you don't have to give up any custody of your funds. Everything's in your wallet, and nothing ever leaves your wallet or goes to another merchant except for the other user that you're trading with.
How much in volume are you doing?
So I don't have an exact number. We are relatively small at the moment, but we are interacting with, or talking with a few larger exchanges that are wanting to integrate with our services on top of small, like probably a few hundred ETH per month of just regular users coming to our platform.
Do you have to follow any KYC laws?
No.
So this seems like obviously useful because like the liquidity on these decentralized exchanges sucks, so you never know where the right place to trade is. But for you guys, is there a way to sustainably take fees on that? Since you're just giving the user information, and if you're just competing on information, isn't somebody going to undercut you and always like?
So there is a possibility. We are basically just giving people information. Now they can always go to these other exchanges themselves and execute the trade. But what we do is we take order splitting as well. So if there is a chance that you're doing a high order limit, instead of having to construct multiple transactions to go to each individual exchange to do all that, our backend will construct one transaction that will route all these trades and at the same time. And again, if you user wanted to, that like we're taking all public information and all order data that is already out there, and just complexly like integrating into a single transaction. So again, you can go to each individual exchange yourselves and do it, but it just makes it much more easy and simple.
Oh, okay.
So are you like the kayak or Priceline is to the travel industry?
Yeah, that's a very good description. Yeah. Yep.
What's your competitive edge? Because I know there's a lot of like swap services out there. Granted, some only offer a few tokens. So like, what's the competitive edge at the end of the day?
So it's just like you said, like there are multiple services that are doing this. We are established for over a year already. We're constantly adding new tokens, going over new markets, integrating multiple exchanges as they come live, creating more liquidity. There are other services that are doing this that only have like a few different exchanges. We have a total of 8 or so of these exchanges integrated. So that would probably be our best.
Do you provide any documentation to the customers that use your site for swaps, for example, for gains or losses on the swap or transaction fees? And if so, in what currency?
Can you repeat?
So someone uses your site to make a swap, and they get a good deal off of it. Do you provide? You never own the asset, but do you provide them with any documentation for their own record keeping around transaction fees you may have taken, or around any gains or losses they might have incurred as a result of the rate when they swap?
So we don't per se have like a list of what their fees were. However, everything is on the blockchain and recorded. So building a tool to quickly see how much you spent, how much fees were taken, is very easily accessible. Through our partner program, you can create a partner contract that all the swaps would pass through, and all the fees generated would then go directly to that contract, and you can then see all the fees that were collected there.
So the question I had is, anyone can use your API, right? Does it have to be a consumer that uses the API, or can businesses also use your API?
It's open to anybody. It could be business, personal, project.
Who are some of the biggest clients of your API, use your API?
I'm sorry?
Who are some of the bigger, well-known?
A few wallet services, Edge Wallet. We have a very large centralized exchange that we're talking to. We can't really go into details because it's not finished yet. But we are working with several larger players in the, not necessarily a DeFi space, but are looking to get into the DeFi space without having to spend all the resources to build their own system into the Ethereum architecture.
Maybe we can have the other presenters just come up, just give people final opportunity to throw questions at you, if there are any questions. So I know we've limited everyone for time. So feel free, everyone, to ask questions of anyone. There's a couple of microphones there as well. So either way. And if you're done, we'll all go downstairs for a drink. So.
Oh, thank God.
Where I can find your book by?
It's
Could you repeat the question too?
because the tax laws change every year. I'm going
Could you repeat
to.
the question?
Oh,
Yeah, we're being
the
recorded
question
too,
was
so
is
sorry.
that when is my next book coming out?
Yeah.
It's coming out in January. Any previous editions, they have to be voided because the tax law constantly changes. So hopefully it'll be published January 3rd of next year.
Okay, and the old one, where I can find?
It would be online in Amazon, and you can always email me, and I also have a website with more info.
Do we have a question with the red shirt? Yep.
For that Lillipon there, you said it was all anchored into that hardware microchip area. So if that device is damaged or something happens, is that gone forever, or is there some sort of redundancy there?
No, it's not. I don't know, is this on?
Click it up. There you go.
No, it's not gone. Another device can replicate what the other device was, its own identity. We're dealing with Puff and identity suppliers, and the chain itself will key to that identity. Now, I know I won't go into detail, but the question then is, can somebody spoof the device? It watches for spoofs. That's a very strange thing to say, but that's what it does. Yes?
Is the key pair stored in the microchip?
Excuse me?
Is the key pair stored in the microchip?
The key pair, actually, it only exists for just a moment, and then it's transformed, and then it's replicated across the system.
Are you guys using ECC?
We're using, it's actually a scrambling algorithm. So we're not using standard encryption here. We can, essentially the technology can rewire the chip. So it can rewire itself every few milliseconds or seconds or however many times you want to do it. And so whatever code you're using actually changes constantly. So if you're able to find the key, which you're not, but if, let's say, you found the key, it would only be useful for whatever time period that chip exists, and then it changes after that.
I have a question for Panvala. Sorry, I forgot the name of your company. You mentioned that you're a foundation and you're facilitating a donor gift, very similar to how donor-advised funds operate, except for you're solving this major problem in the nonprofit industry where donors don't have enough input and where their gifts actually go, even if you give to a donor-advised fund. I'm curious if the structure that you've built into your code with exchanging the ether for a token still built in the benefit of a tax deduction on your donors for your donor records.
So one of the top questions. So the question was, do donors get a tax deduction when they donate to Panvala? Right now they do not. There is no 501c3 to give you a tax deduction at the moment. What we plan to solve that problem. That's a solvable problem. The core of the system is the Panvala smart contracts. If you don't know what a smart contract is, it's the rules of a board game that a blockchain is enforcing for you. That's literally the whole thing. So that's the core of this game that we're playing, is those rules. But if you wanted to have a 501c3 on the edge of it, taking in those donations, making sure that you get your tax deduction, they're doing the donation on your behalf. That's the way we envision that problem being solved. It's just that we haven't done the legwork to solve it.
Just want to hear from each of you, just for the audience's sake as well. What would be the single takeaway that each of you would have in terms of like action item for this group here?
That's a good question. So the question was basically like, what's a good action item for anyone who's interested in blockchain technology going forward from here? I would say participate. So right now, the way that most people interact with blockchain technology is by speculating on something. And to me, that's not really enough, because at this point, there's so many other things you can do. Even if you don't have like a real reason to do them, people have built stuff. And to actually understand what's going on, you're gonna have to use some of it. A lot of it's really complicated. A lot of it's really hard to use. But taking the step to actually experiment with some of the stuff that people have built, I think will be valuable for most people. It's a really useful learning experience.
That is a great question. So my answer is, unfortunately, everybody in this room knows somebody or has a relative, or you yourself have an illness or some sort of chronic medical condition. Tell them to email me, curativefinance@gmail.com. That's your to-do today.
So Lily Pond has brought a very, very radical solution to a market that might otherwise be indifferent to it. But it is because the world of autism is itself the ultimate radical human condition that we have found a home for our technology. What your takeaway is this: the chips that our world is sitting on are rotten to the core and cannot protect you. And the entire chip industry has to be rebuilt from the bottom up. Lily Pond is deploying technology that was buried by Steve Jobs and Bill Gates 20 years ago because their clients deemed the technology too expensive and the threat too insignificant to justify investment. Well, we've been kicking the can down the road for too long, and it's time for a radical change, and you should get yourselves to the Lily Pond website as fast as you can and learn about blockchain 2.0.
Thank you, Richard. Yeah, that's very compelling on the autism side, and that's a great question. Thank you. Just to validate what the other folks are saying with regard to blockchain, as I mentioned in my call to action, if you're on the marketing or business side, at the daml.com website, there's a marketplace. I'd encourage you to take a look at some of those solutions. They're in play or they have been used already. And then on the development side, I would definitely take a look at the DAML SDK. As a developer, if you get skills on the DAML side, they will be transferable to multiple enterprise blockchains, including the up and coming big push on the VMware blockchain that's going to continue to come out from them. So daml.com and then the marketplace. Thank you.
Anybody that, again, is interested in working in DeFi space, feel free to check out our developer portal, developer.total.com. And if you have any more questions about how you can work in the DeFi space, I'd be happy to answer any more questions. My email is noah@total.com as well.
If you are involved in any way with blockchain, I would echo what Amber Baldo said, the engineer that developed JP Morgan's chain. Basically start with attestations. State what you're doing, put that on the blockchain. Notation, the little marks in the margin of a book. The book is the knowledge, the notation is the wisdom. And if you've got wisdom built up and you can provide an interoperable plane across wisdoms, then you can really explore your knowledge.
Super. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. So my call to action, as you might expect, is visit our website, austinblockchaincollective.com. So one of the links there will be to our meetup group, and probably by tomorrow night on the meetup group, there'll be links to the recording of both video and audio, and we'll have links to the presentations as well, and we'll publish those out on the LinkedIn group and our Twitter feed, and you find those by going to our website. So that's our call to action, is visit our website. Thanks very much for coming. Great to see people here. I know it's getting a bit late now, and hope you have a great safe trip home. And remember, next meetup, October 21st, is going to be focusing on security tokens. But before that, you'll be visiting our website, won't you? Thank you. Take care.
Thanks, Pete. Good job.
Let's see how much your system we can build here, because if we're building it anyway, then all we have to do is just hook into it.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much.
I hope we get a chance to talk.
I think so.
Yeah.
I read the white paper, and I didn't understand half of it.
I don't
but
expect
the other half
people to
was
understand
pretty
it.
amazing.
Yeah, I think is exactly the right thing. That's really where blockchain needs to go. Linking that chain to the documents, providing a notation about what that document is, the links and all that. And that's essentially what we're trying to achieve, is establish that central totem pole where those messages can be.
Yeah.
So what I said to Yolanda was, if we're building it anyway, then there's no need for her to burden herself with